Hello and welcome to the 2023 WWDC Rumour Recap on Unpacked Technologies. In this video, I'm going to be going over all of the leaks and rumours ahead of this year's WWDC, including for both the hardware and the software. I'm super excited for WWDC this year, so let's get straight into it. Alright, so the way I'll structure this video is I'll start with talking about the software leaks and rumours, and then I'll move on to the potential hardware that we can expect to see as well. But I'm starting with the software because WWDC is primarily a software event, and we can definitely expect to see software updates for all the different platforms, including iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, and more. So we'll start with iOS. So this year we're expecting iOS 17, and based on what we've heard, it sounds like they're going to be focusing on a more stability-focused update. Now, iOS 16 has proven to be quite buggy over the course of the year that it's been running. So we're very established that Apple does need to really focus on reliability and stability in this update. But there will definitely still be a few changes. So the biggest one we're hearing at the moment is a nightstand mode. So this would be sort of like when you put an Apple Watch on a dock. So if you put your iPhone into landscape mode, it would be able to show you the time, some essential widgets with some data on it, and then also some smart home controls that you can just tap and it will enact those options. So you would have it in landscape mode on charge, and then it would do that. Now it sounds like it's going to be a more advanced always on display mode. So presumably it would be limited to the iPhone 14 Pro models and potentially 15 Pros with the always on display. But that sounds like a really useful feature of that always on display mode, because at the moment you don't necessarily get a whole lot of extra functionality from having that LTPO OLED display that can do the always on mode. We're also hearing that we may get a redesigned control center. We've had this control center since iOS 11 and it is starting to get a little bit stale and dry. I think a redesign would definitely be in order. It's not necessarily the most intuitive thing, like it's functional, but it can get a little bit crowded when you've got heaps of options and you have to scroll. So I'm hoping to see a redesign to that. We've also seen a preview of Apple's accessibility features. So if we head into Safari here, we can see that on the 16th of May, Apple introduced an announcement for their new accessibility features. So these will be included with iOS 17. So you can see a new basic sort of home screen layout there with your essential apps. The different designs of the apps, so just be a simple grid for photos with a back button. Same for camera, you would just have a basic take photo and then a back button. Calls, music, and text messages, which is fully emoji based, which I think is an interesting decision. So those will all be incorporated into iOS 17. So that's just a little expansion shot of what it might be like. There's your home screen with the 5 essential apps that they put on there to make it easy. Also, it sounds like it can learn your voice and then using AI, it can make a speech on your phone sound like it's actually you talking. So you can type out what it wants you to say and it will sound like it's you. And so much more. So that's it, learning your voice there. And they're just some previews of the accessibility features that will be included with iOS 17. Now, in terms of everything else, it sounds like the rest of it will be focused on stability. We might get some new additions to the lock screen where we can share lock screen wallpapers and things like that with others. So just some refinements there, but the rest of it should be focused on stability and performance, which I think is a good thing. And in terms of supported devices, well, it's a bit of a toss-up at the moment. So we can either expect to see iPhone 8 or 10 and later, which would be the same as iOS 16, or it could be dropped to the iPhone 10s and 10R or later. So we're not really sure. They could drop those A11 Bionic devices or they could keep them around. So it's a bit of a toss-up at the moment. I personally think they'll probably keep the A11 devices and keep the same supported device list as iOS 16, but it's really up to Apple and we'll find out at WWDC. Now, in terms of the other software, we haven't really heard much at all about iPadOS, macOS, HomePodOS, or tvOS. They will all receive updates, but we haven't heard much about them. Now, in terms of the iPad, we have recently heard that Apple has actually released Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro on the iPad, so they've completely redesigned them for a touch-based interface. It's interesting that they decided to do that before WWDC. Whether that has any meaning or it's just a coincidence, I'm not sure. But those have been added. So, but other than that, we haven't really heard any other rumours or leaks for iPadOS, macOS, and more. But, however, what is getting a major update is watchOS. So, in terms of watchOS here, we've had this sort of grid layout here forever, since the initial Apple Watch came out, and it is starting to get a little bit dry. So it does sound like Apple is going to redesign this. Now, we have also had a list view as an option if you wanted to use that, but it's far from intuitive. So it sounds like they might be moving to a more page format, just like iOS, where you could have folders, widgets, and more, and you could just swipe through them. So that sounds really helpful. And it sounds like watchOS 10 is going to be the biggest update for the Apple Watch since it's been introduced. And in terms of supported devices for that, I would expect all the same devices, so the Series 4 and later. And now it's time to move on to the potential hardware announcements. So I'm sure you've all heard about the rumoured Apple AR/VR headset. This has been in the talks for years now, and it does sound like, according to the rumours, if they're going to release it, it will come out at this WWDC. Now, I'm still a bit skeptical. I'm not really sure what to believe at the moment. We have been led to believe things in the past, and then that hasn't happened. So I'm just tempering my expectations a little bit. But according to the leakers, this is the event when it should come out. And if it doesn't come out at this event, I would assume that maybe it was never a thing in the first place. But in terms of the Apple AR/VR headset, it sounds like it's got some insane specs about it. So we've got dual 4K displays, they're high refresh rate. Sounds like you might have a waist-mounted battery pack, which sounds a bit funny, but that's for extra power. You might have an M2 Pro or even two M2 Pros powering this device. So it sounds really amazing, but I can also imagine it'll probably be really expensive as well. So we can expect to see a preview of that, and we can also expect, if that's the case, that we will see a operating system as well that will be released for that. Could be called Reality OS or XR OS. There are a couple of the predicted names, and if we see the operating system, then we can expect that developers will have the opportunity to develop apps for it and optimize their experience. But other than that, the functionality of this device is still a little bit unknown at this point. But that could be the reason why some of the other platforms like iOS, macOS, iPadOS, things like that, have been left with a few less features if all the development has been going into this so-called Reality OS. And the other bit of hardware that we can expect to see is potentially a 15-inch MacBook Air. So it would essentially have the same M2 chip as the current 13-inch MacBook Air, but it would just be in the larger form factor, the 15-inch. I think this would be a great addition to the lineup, as I've been wanting a 15-inch MacBook Air for ages. However, I am a little bit concerned about the pricing. If the pricing is too high, it may be too close to the 14-inch MacBook Pro, where you may just want to, at that point, go up to that. So we'll have to see what they do with that. But nevertheless, I am excited to hopefully see that at this event. And yeah, that's pretty much all of the leaks and rumours ahead of WWDC 2023 that's coming up in just a couple of days at this point. I'm really excited for the event, and it should be a really packed and exciting one. So could be one of the biggest WWDCs in years, especially with all that potential hardware coming out. So I'm really excited to see what happens, and let me know in the comments below what you're most excited for coming up to this event, and whether you'll be watching live. I know in Australia it starts at 3 AM for me, so it's an early start, but I am excited to watch the event live. But yeah, thanks for watching this video on Unpacked Technologies. Hopefully it was helpful in giving you a good idea of what WWDC is going to be like this year and what we can expect. And then it's always fun to come back at a later date and look at what we got right, what we may have gotten wrong, and see all that sort of stuff. So I'm really excited. And yeah, thanks for watching this video on Unpacked Technologies. Don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video.